complex, brutal, disturbing crime scene. There were things that were done to their bodies that was horrific. They changed several things in the scene, which is really, really unusual for any murder scene anywhere in the country or in the world.
Welcome back to another episode of Grizzly True Crime. My name is Grizzly, and today we're actually looking at an unsolved case from 2011 that investigators are looking into to see the potential connections between that case and the Delphi case. When I first heard of this, I thought, really? Are we sure? But the more I went into this rabbit hole, the more I'm like, oh, well, it's very interesting. So I have worked on a presentation for you, and we're going to have a look at the Delphi murders. This is just a quick recap, and then the murders of Bill and Peggy Stephenson from 2011. And then I want to hear your thoughts. It's a bit of a what episode. It brings about a lot of questions. So let's get into it. So for those of you who've never followed the Delphi murders, I'm going to give you a recap. And for those of you who have followed, a recap's always a good idea, right? So 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German went to Monon High Bridge in Delphi, Indiana on February 13th, 2017 for an afternoon stroll. So this is a 2017 double homicide. The one we're looking at today is a 2011 double homicide. And let's see if there are any connections. All right. We've got an OG in the house. Claire, hello. And Lizzie B, love the work you do. Thank you for being so diligent and compassionate. Thank you so much. So at 2:07 p.m., Libby uploaded a photo of Abby on the bridge to Snapchat. At 2:13 p.m., they were ordered down the hill. Their bodies were discovered on February 14th on Ron Logan's property. Ron Logan died in January of 2022. Police have described the scene as staged or posed, so remember that. On October 26th, 2022, so you see these murders happened in 2017, and in October 2022, a suspect, Richard M. Allen, pictured here, was arrested. He was charged with 2 counts of felony murder on October 31st, 2022, and we looked at the entire, what code it is and what it means, and have a look at those episodes on the Delphi playlist if you do want to catch up on that. The next court date is June 15th, 2023. It's been postponed. You're supposed to be there in March now sometime, and now they moved it to June 15th, 2023. So that is also an update. I have a video that I've done, I think it was 2 days ago for you as well, on this Delphi case with the latest documents. So make sure you go look at that as well. I keep you updated on all of this as we go along. So that is that case. Now we're going to look at the unsolved case of Bill and Peggy Stephenson. This is them, the lovely couple pictured here. It's very sad to hear this is from 2011 and there's still no answers, no closure. But investigators sound excited. They sound like they said this case is far from a cold case, far from over. And they're onto someone, which is interesting because the someone they're onto is not Richard Allen. That's what I'm like, oh, wait, what? So let's continue on, okay? Let's have a look at this case. Let's deep dive. So May 29th, 2011 is when this happened, and we travel to Florence, Kentucky. Bill Stevenson was the oldest of 14 children. He came from a big family with lots of nieces and nephews. I say that as well because one nephew was suspected of the crime and then ruled out later. We will look at that. Peggy had one brother and one sister, both from big loving families. Lots of, as I say, nieces, uncles, aunts, nephews, everyone. And Bill Stevenson met Peggy then on a Boone County dairy farm, and they got married on August 25th, 1956. They had 2 sons and 1 daughter. 7 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild, and they were about to celebrate their 55th wedding anniversary. Welcome to all the locals. Patricia says, I lived in Florence growing area. I see there's lots of locals in the house here. Okay. So Witchy True Crime says, so we may get lucky with a trial for the Delphi murders. Indiana will soon be allowing cameras in the courtroom. And so since they postponed Richard Allen's trial until June 15th, it's after maybe the cameras will be in. Very interesting as well. So Bill, ran a truckers chapter at the Travel America truck stop in Florence. So keep that in mind, because that means he knew a lot of truckers, okay? And I know in the Delphi case, there was some speculation along the way that what if the suspect or suspects were in some way involved in the trucking industry and could travel over the place and all of that. We looked at that. We've looked at other connections in the Delphi case too, plausible ones, possibly. Like we looked at Lawrence Spear's case, Evansdale. We've looked at quite a few actually. And this one, though, investigators sound quite excited about. So it piqued my interest and I hope it piques yours too. Please do like this video and share it. You can use the hashtag Bill and Peggy Stephenson. It'll be really great to, for their family to know that we're thinking of them. The case is far from cold, as investigators say. And I do hope that they will have answers soon. So, Bill ran the truckers chapter at the Travel America truck stop in Florence, Kentucky for many years, and Peggy was a loving housewife. They were a very loving, giving, and appreciated couple in their community. In 2011, Bill and Peggy moved into a condo at Ridge Edge Court in the Oak Brook subdivision of Florence. So that makes me sad because they just moved into this condo. They must have been so excited. They say in 2011, I don't know exactly how many months before, but it was a beautiful complex, and they moved into a condo there. And then on May 29, 2011, they were murdered. So let's continue on. On Saturday, May 28th. Okay, so let me make it bigger for you guys. Saturday, May 28th, 2011 was a bright, sunny summer's day, and it was Memorial Day weekend. Bill and Peggy had a great day with their family and friends and looked forward to attending their usual Sunday service at the Union Baptist Church the next morning, where Peggy was a faithful organ player for 42 years. Bill Stevenson, both you can see both were age 74 in 2011 when they died. Bill Stevenson, 74, was semi-retired from insurance investment and founded a worship service at the Truckers Chapel on Burlington Pike in Florence, just 11 minutes away. But on this Sunday, he was nowhere to be seen, which concerned everyone greatly. People started calling the Stevenson residence, but there was no answer. A family member decided to drive to the condo to check on Bill and Peggy, and what they found still haunts the community today. There was no sign of forced entry. No one in the neighborhood heard anything, and the killer evidently stayed in the residence for several hours after the murders. Okay, hope you guys are following. Welcome. The condo complex had only one way in and one way out, and their condo was right at the back, which wasn't an easy target for passers-by. As I said, there was no sign of forced entry. No one in the neighborhood heard anything, and the killer evidently stayed in the residence for several hours after the murders. So note, while they were known as a very kind and loving couple, they were also described as cautious, meaning they were not naive. They wouldn't just let someone in them, and they wouldn't dish out their address. They had one bedroom, so it also wasn't a place where someone could just last minute come over and sleep over. Okay? A visitor would need to be buzzed in. It wasn't a place one could just casually drive around in. Okay, on May 29th, 2011, the crime scene. Bill and Peggy had been bludgeoned and stabbed to death. The weapons used in this crime have not been found. Law enforcement does know the type of weapon used, but they're keeping it close to the vest. The scene had been cleaned and staged. Every room in the house had been staged and items were moved. Thank you so much, Dana. So that's scary. This is a creepy scene, right? The victims' bodies had been posed. The killer had allegedly left a signature or a message of some kind in the home. They didn't specify exactly what that message was and how it was written. You know, I'm sure our minds could think of many things, but they say allegedly left a signature or a message in the home. Bill and Peggy's family photographs had been tampered with and arranged in a way that suggested the killer liked certain people and disliked others. Investigators described the scene as the scene they, the killer, wanted found and not the crime scene. So they wanted the scene to be found like that, which we've heard similarities in Delphi, of them saying they staged the scene. There were 3 signatures, which normally would be a signature. But anyway, they're like, there could be 3 signatures, all kinds of things. And they also kept a lot, they still do keep a lot close to the vest, right? Detective Coy Cox says there were things that were maybe on end tables or up on shelves that were changed, altered, moved, marked on. There were items that seemed to have no significant meaning left in different rooms. Most of the items that were left at the scene appeared to be things that were probably in the residence. Yes, and Shane says cleaned and staged exactly what the rumor in Delphi has been since early on. It's super creepy. So law enforcement thought that the scene, now listen to this, had such ritualistic tones that they made a list of self-described Wiccans in the area. They suspected that the staging was perhaps to obscure the original point of entry. One of the victims had a medical device that helped the coroner determine exactly what their time of death was. They say between 1 and 4 a.m. on May 29th, 2011, but law enforcement actually knows the precise time that one of the victims died, but they've not released that. So it would be something like a pacemaker, right? Okay. One victim had post-mortem injuries inflicted 2 hours after their death. Detective Coy Cox believes that the killer's intention was to kill both Bill and Peggy. This was premeditated double homicide. Based on the day and time the killer chose to commit this crime, knowing that the couple's absence would be noticed immediately by their community, law enforcement believes that they wanted the crime scene to be discovered and to shock people. They wanted it to be remembered. They wanted to make an impact. Detective Cox said that he believes the killer's motive may be related to a disagreement over correct Christian practices, i.e., their actions may be justified in their own mind, like some kind of a Christian vigilante type. Did the killer leave non-secular items behind, which is that's religious items, right? Which the Delphi investigators, they also said that. They talked about non-secular items being left behind. So it's very interesting. Okay. There was DNA found in multiple places in the home, all from the same unidentified individual. This DNA has not been matched to anyone in the system, and Detective Cox said that the DNA is not suitable for genealogy and phenotyping at this time. The FBI has said that these murders seem to be the type of crime that is one of 1% that reads more like fiction than reality. Phenotyping is generating a physical description of a person based on genetic material, and genealogy is attempting to identify the donor of a DNA sample based on family and population genetics. It's not clear why the sample is not suitable for these types of analysis, but it may mean that it was simply a very small sample. Remember, Bill had lots of connections to truckers, which means that hundreds of truckers across the USA have been interviewed in this case, which remains unsolved. So who's the nephew who was a person of interest? So I had a deep dive into this as well. His name is Charles Stevenson. So he's known as Steve, who was arrested for the murder of Lee Jennings in Aurora, Indiana in 2012. Okay. On March 29th of 2012, 67-year-old Lee was bludgeoned to death with a skillet and a pepper grinder in her home. Steve knew Lee. They met at a barber shop in Florence, Kentucky, which is also where the Stevensons are from, right? And he's a Stevenson, which was Lee's hometown. She had given him thousands of dollars. He owed her a lot of money. Law enforcement believes that the motive was money and avoiding jail. Well, he did not succeed at that at all. Charles, so Steve, was convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He also had other drug-related charges. His DNA was not found at the scene of Bill and Peggy's murders, and he's not currently considered a suspect. So then I wanted to see, okay, there's on the right-hand side, what timeline are we looking at? So Bill and Peggy were murdered on May 29th, 2011. This crime took place on March 29th, 2012. And he was convicted in May 2013. The Delphi murders took place February 13th, 2017, because by this point I was like, whoa, imagine if he was for a time a person of interest in Bill and Peggy's murders, and then this crime also happened almost a year later. Well, then I was like, okay, when was he convicted? But he was already life imprisonment without the possibility for parole in May 2013. Then the Delphi murders happened on February 13th, 2017. Okay, so he is now not considered a suspect. So Lee Jennings, Aurora, Indiana, murdered in 2012, March 29, 2012, seems to be an isolated incident, which is very sad in itself. Because, she was very kind, gave this guy lots of money. They say she invested in him, but I think she was loaning him some money, and look how he repaid her. Okay, so they've got this guy's DNA, yes, but now in Bill and Peggy's murders, they have DNA, but they don't know who it belongs to. So now, what is this possible link to the Delphi case? How do we look at all of this, and why are investigators looking at it? And I will show you a video as well after this, where we can see the detective speaking about it. So in November 2022, not long ago, a tip led investigators to Indiana. Detective Cox said, "We had received some information from an individual regarding the Delphi murders in Indiana, and they had said, for all these reasons, we believe it may be the same person that was involved in the Stevenson case." Right away, detectives say they started looking into a possible connection between Bill and Peggy's 2011 murder and the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi, Indiana in 2017. There's things that will make you really interested in a case, simply more than just somebody saying, hey, we think this person might have been involved. But we had a little piece of information that really made that case specifically interesting to us, Cox said. The information pointed Boone County investigators toward a specific person who had a specific item that they were interested in. So not only is there a specific person they're interested in, but also a specific item, which also then can't be Ron Logan. It can't be Richard Allen. So this is getting very interesting. So if we look at it, we've got two more slides. Detective Cox says, "I'm not going to tell you what that item was. We've recently been in the northern part of Indiana investigating this guy, following him around, looking for things, collecting all of the information and evidence that we would need to at least vet him as best we could with our case. He was cooperative. We were able to go down that path with him, and he articulated good reason to why that item may have existed." The Boone County investigators have been working with the Indiana State Police, and they have sent the item to them. To be clear, Detective Cox said that their investigation into a potential link between the two cases did not include Richard Allen. The person that they've been following around and investigating is someone else. Richard Allen was already in jail by the time this item became of interest. We received information from Indiana as it related to some persons, and we forwarded that to them. We did not send them the information that led them to Richard Allen. We sent them information that may have had some parallel consistencies with where they are with that case right now. I know that sounds a little cloak and dagger, but I'm just sorry about that. We're not going to get further with that, Detective Coy Cox said. Anyone with information on this case is urged to call Boone County Sheriff's Office at 859-334-2175. There is a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. I've actually seen other articles that say $100,000, but there's a big reward in this case. It's unsolved from May 29, 2011. Yes, item existed. Wow, what wording. I know, right? Very interesting. So let's look at now the Delphi versus this Stevenson case. I know Delphi is the location and Stevenson is the surname. So Abby and Libby and the Stevenson case, right? What are the similarities? So we know it's a double homicide, that it happened on a special occasion, one on Memorial Day weekend and one on Valentine's Day. Well, Galentine's, February 13th, right? A sharp weapon was used. There's no apparent SA, allegedly. It's a staged scene. There's possible non-secular items at the scene. There are few witnesses and no one heard anything. There's a possible framing attempt by staging, which I'm starting to wonder if this is creating some reasonable doubt in Richard Allen's case, because I know there's already that. It already in the public eye exists that people aren't like quite convinced, as we shouldn't be convinced because he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But there's a lot of speculation as to what if he isn't the right guy? What if he's only one of many or one of two or whatever it is? And as you know, in the Delphi case, the prosecutor says he didn't want that PCA unsealed because there could be others involved. So that's what's interesting about this, right? They say possible framing attempt by staging. Could be more than one person involved. The killer knew that they would run into their victims at that time, meaning with the Stevenson case, they knew their routine, the couple's routine, and they wanted to make an impact. They wanted the community to notice that they're missing, that they're not at the church. They immediately, within hours, right? Same as in Delphi. There was some social media connection, possibly some kind of a meetup that maybe was going to happen. That was with the Kagan Klein account, but we don't know with what other accounts. So who else had access to those accounts? It just seems like, very calculated, premeditated, and all of that in both cases. Possibly. Okay, now differences. Obviously, it's inside a house, and the Delphi case is outside in nature. A Sunday versus a Monday, but not that far apart, right? The victims in the Delphi case, I'm saying they were spontaneous, meaning that wasn't their routine to just go out there at the time of day. It was a random school day off, and they went out there to Monon High Bridge. So there's that versus the Stevenson one, which they had a routine going. So the person who premeditated this knew that, speculatively. Now, young female victims versus an elderly couple. So that's the difference, of course. Delphi happened somewhere between 2 and 5 p.m. on February 13th, and the Stevenson one was 1 to 4 a.m. It'll be interesting if like one is at 3 p.m. and the other one's at 3 a.m. I don't know if that could mean anything at all. And in Delphi, there's obviously photo, video, audio, and with the Stevenson case, from what we know, although they're keeping a lot close to the vest, we don't know if there's video or audio, any witnesses at all. Okay. So now let me show you this quickly. Here we go.
Or anyone else. out.
Now we need the boost.
They've tried everything, including talking to mediums and psychics and announcing a $50,000 reward for information. And they're working on some of their latest leads right now. The disturbing deaths of Bill and Peggy Stephenson left so many in the Boone County community shattered.
It was just horrible, just to find out that they're both gone and that it wasn't an accident, wasn't carbon monoxide. It was at the hands of somebody else. It was almost too much to bear.
The couple was murdered inside their own home in May 2011 after living lives filled with love and ministry. Their daughter, Beth, calls it an incredibly scary situation.
You were constantly looking over your shoulder. And just up until about 3 years ago, my front blinds never opened. Just within the last 3 years, I've been able to sit with the blinds open.
It was a complex crime scene.
It's pretty bad that somebody could stay, that they could stage something and stay with bodies like that for, multiple hours. It's pretty sick.
That's why detectives Coy Cox and Tim Adams are not willing to close the door on anything.
We are careful in this case because of the complexity of some of the evidence, not to say that anyone has been ruled out, but we certainly take it all the way down the path as far as we can to where it's like, okay, we don't see the need to go on down this path because it's not looking like that is our individual.
In November 2022, a tip led them to a neighboring state.
We had received some information from an individual regarding the Delphi murders in Indiana, and they had said for all of these reasons, we believe it may be the same person that was involved in the Stevenson case.
Right away, detectives started looking into a possible connection between Bill and Peggy's 2011 murder and the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi, Indiana in 2017, a case that's garnered national attention.
There's things that will make you really interested in a case, simply more than just somebody saying, hey, we think this person might have been involved. But we had a little piece of information that really made that case specifically interesting to us.
So that's Detective Coy Cox, one of the lead investigators in the Stevenson case. And that is who I've been quoting in my presentation as well. Very interesting. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, you guys. I'm just like, what? It just got really interesting, in my opinion. Let me know what you think.
Nation pointed Boone County investigators toward a specific person who had a specific item they were interested in.
I'm not going to tell you about that, what that item was. We recently been in the northern part of Indiana, investigating this guy, following him around, looking for things, collecting all of the information and the evidence that we would need to at least vet him as best we could with our case. He was cooperative. We were able to go down that path with him, and he articulated good reason to why that may have existed.
They sent what they found to Indiana State Police, since they are handling the murder investigation of Abby and Libby. To be clear, Detective Cox says their investigation into a potential link between the two cases did not include Richard Allen.
We received information from Indiana as it to some persons, and we forwarded that to them. We did not send them the information that led them to Richard Allen. We sent them information that may have had some parallel consistencies with where they are with that case right now.
When Boone
Okay. Yes. Plankton's like, what's the item? I must know. That's what we're all thinking, right? But they're like, nope, not going to go into that. I also wonder what the item is. It's very interesting, especially because the Delphi murders took place years later. So Bill and Peggy were murdered May 29th, 2011. And the Delphi murders took place on the 13th of February, 2017. So now what item, it's just interesting, to think about. And as I say, the prosecution in the Delphi case was saying they don't want the probable cause affidavit to be unsealed because there could be others involved. And with a felony murder charge, which means that Richard Allen really could be, for example, I'm speculating, could be, based on that code, the kidnapper, maybe leading them somewhere, maybe not actually committing the murder. Maybe there's others, a person, I don't know, more people. Is that person a trucker? I say that because that seems to be speculated in the Stevenson case as well, because Bill Stevenson knew so many truckers. So I don't know. I just find it very interesting, and I can't wait to read the live chat replay, because I know I miss a lot, and then also the comments that you leave below on when you do watch the replay.
County detectives were in Delphi. Allen was already in jail, where he has been since October of 2022, accused of Abby and Libby's murders.
I know that sounds a little cloak and dagger, but I'm just sorry about that. We're not going any further with that.
That's not the only lead they're following.
We have two gentlemen that are in the trucking profession that we have collected DNA from, and we are awaiting response back from the Kentucky State Police Lab.
They're waiting on results.
Waiting from the Kentucky for DNA results from the Kentucky State Police. So that's interesting as well.
From the lab to see if the truck driver's DNA matches the unknown profile found at the Stevenson crime scene. It has Detective Cox feeling hopeful. As someone who has been on the case since day one, it's personal.
That's hard. That's on my watch. That's my case. I want to solve it. I don't want to say it's more special, but it's a very special case, and really like to get it solved, as we would all of them, obviously. But yeah, this one has a little extra, tug.
For Bill and Peggy's family, all of these developments feel like a step toward peace, justice, and healing.
Somebody deserves to pay for what they did. And I think we owe it to them. I keep looking at their picture. We owe it to them, to find answers for them.
Right. Let me show you the Facebook group as well. I will make sure I link everything for you in the description box afterwards, and I'm going to timestamp everything for you. In loving memory of Bill and Peggy Stephenson is the Facebook group. You can see all these photos over here. You can see the posts as well. This was July 29, 2021. Our coverage of your mom and dad's case aired today. Here's a link if you have an iPhone. So that was a podcast. This was really a good episode. Just the Tipsters True Crime Podcast, episode 194. Looks like 10 years is too long. The Stevenson Murders Update. So I had to listen to that. I would recommend that too. I'll link all of this for you. So yeah, this is where you can find the Facebook group. What else do I have for you? There's actually one other clip. Is it this one? This one. Let's see, because there were a few differences just slight differences in these two clips. Let's see this one quickly.
Detective Coy Cox and his partner make up Boone County's cold.
We need to boost it again. Sorry.
Case unit. Yet they say the murder of Bill and Peggy Stephenson is far from cold. In fact, they've traveled to at least 14 other states to follow up on leads, including several trips to, and they're pursuing.
Can you guys hear it okay? I feel like it needs to be boosted more. Just hold on. Sometimes I have to turn it off and then turn it back on.
Potential breaks in the case using a DNA profile. May 29th, 2011 was a sunny Sunday in the suburbs.
It was a spring day, like most around here in northern Kentucky.
But the day quickly turned dark after a gruesome discovery.
It was a very complex, brutal, disturbing crime scene.
Two people.
Complex, brutal, disturbing crime scene, which is very similar to how Superintendent Doug Carter describes the Delphi case as well. And one wouldn't just draw similarities if there are none to draw, because there's so many cases, in the world. But investigators are looking into the links between these two cases, which I find very interesting, especially when they mention an item. So as Papa Bear was saying, what if it's like a trophy from the one to the next? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's quite interesting. Yeah, a serial killer would have kept a trophy of previous crimes. Maybe that's it. And maybe maybe there was even one before the Stevensons. Exactly.
Both 74 years old were found dead inside their Boone County home. A beloved husband and wife, Bill and Peggy Stephenson. A concerned family member found them when they didn't show up for church.
We think it was, a very quick surprise attack. There was some blunt force trauma.
Detective Coy Cox and his partner Tim Adams were sent to the scene. The house had been altered and the bodies were staged.
There were things that were done to their bodies that was horrific. They changed several things in the scene, which is really, really unusual for any murder scene anywhere in the country or in the world.
Whoever killed the couple did not take off right away.
There was
We're going to go on with that now. So the staging, they both say in the Stevenson case, they also say in the Delphi case. They talk about non-secular items, religious type of items being found. It's rumored to have been found at either crime scene, both of them, which is very interesting as well. And here they say the killer stayed in the house for several hours afterwards. It sounds really scary.
a bit of time that the perpetrators, the killers, stayed in the residence or felt comfortable coming back to the scene.
In general, detectives believe that kind of behavior points to a suspect who knows the victims. And Bill and Peggy Stephenson were loved by many.
They were amazing people, good Christian people. They wanted to share their faith and their love with the community. And
They've missed out on so much. They've missed out on weddings. They've missed out on 3 new great-grandbabies, graduations, like I said, weddings of the grandkids. All the grandkids are married.
That's Bill and Peggy's daughter, Victor. She describes her parents as devoted churchgoers, a couple who loved their big family. Peggy was the quiet one, an experienced and talented musician.
Played for many weddings, funerals, played for a couple of the grandkids' weddings. Yeah.
How do they know they stayed? They know because one reason would be that one of the victims in the Stevenson case had a medical device, which they didn't say exactly what it was, but something like maybe a pacemaker or something that showed exactly the time of death. They are saying the murders happened between 1 and 4 a.m., but they actually do know the specific time. They're just not releasing that. So that, and then all the staging, all the things moving around, and 2 hours after one of the victims' deaths, they also inflicted more injuries on that victim. So they know they were around there for a bit. They didn't just go in and commit the crime and leave. They were there literally creating this staging, which is quite scary.
She loved to play the organ. She played the piano too.
Bill was the known as the life of the party, a man heavily involved in ministry. He shared his faith with truck drivers every Sunday at a truck stop in Florence.
They had a trailer out that they would open up during the week, and if truckers wanted to stop and pray, they would pray with them.
That connection to the community became a possible lead for detectives Cox and Adams. Today, they handle the sheriff's cold case unit, but they're still investigating the Stevenson case. Over the years, they've interviewed a lot of truck drivers.
Early on in the investigation, we had information that someone had been at the truck stop looking for Bill pretty aggressively, banging on the door of the chapel, asking if anyone had seen Bill.
There are truckers they've ruled out, others still on their radar. They've also looked into Charles Stevie Stevenson, the nephew of Bill and Peggy. Detective Cox says they've even spoken to him recently. Stevie is locked up, spending life in prison for beating an Indiana woman to death with a skillet.
We feel pretty comfortable that that's in a good place. There is no final statement on there. It isn't that he's been cleared, but we have certainly vetted him in every way possible.
One of the largest developments case could still bring them the break they need to close it. Detective Cox says they have an unknown DNA profile.
I'm just going to pause it there for a second. If you listen again, this detective definitely is using a plural word of killers, which also in the Delphi case, they are saying there could be more than this one suspect, right? So if there's more than one in both cases, and if, I don't know, they've got Richard Allen arrested in the Delphi case, but if there's others involved, who are those others? And could those others, whether it's one person or many, I don't know, also be involved in this Stevenson case? And we speculated before about the Evansdale murders as well, which was a double homicide of 2 young girls, because we don't know much about that crime scene either. We don't know if that was staged or anything like that. So it's all very interesting.
We don't know who that DNA belongs to, and it was found at our crime scene.
It is complex, so genealogy isn't an option, at least right now. There is testing they can do to try to find a match, and that's something they're actively pursuing.
We're just still hopeful that they'll come up with the right evidence that they need, and a confession would be great. But we're still hopeful that they'll solve it.
More than a decade later, tips continue to come in. Detectives even traveled across state lines in recent weeks to see if what happened to the Stevensons has any connection to the murder of 2 young girls in Delphi.
We had received some information from an individual regarding the Delphi murders in Indiana, and they had said, for all of these reasons, we believe it may be the same person that was involved in the Stevenson case.
There's still much more to share.
Very interesting, right? And you guys are asking exactly how far apart. I'll tell you now. Let's just quickly look at this. So it's an unsolved case. Bill and Peggy Stephenson, if you're only joining now, I just quickly want to go here to see they moved into Ridge Edge Court. Okay, so hold on one second. I've got here Ridge Edge Court, Florence, Kentucky. So let me bring this up here. Okay, let's do a quick map time. I don't have a very detailed one, but we'll do a quick map time. Okay, so if we look here, Bill and Peggy Stephenson were murdered May 29, 2011 at this Ridge Edge Court complex in their condo, which is in Florence, Kentucky. And Delphi, Indiana is within a 4-hour or so drive. Let's just see. 3 hours and 7 minutes, 196 miles. So you can see here's Cincinnati, here's Indianapolis, and here's Delphi, Indiana. So they're pretty far apart, but also not that far apart, especially if they could be a trucker or someone involved across that, travels cross country or across states or whatever. Jeanette Hines says, do you think it could be someone they knew? I do think it would be someone they knew, especially someone that would know their routine. I mean, I would speculate someone like a trucker, and they are looking at 2 DNA tests now from 2 truckers. So that is interesting. Then it would be interesting to see if they do find one of them to match the DNA profile or something like that. That would then be interesting to see if that person then knows Richard Allen or the Kleins or Ron Logan or anyone like that, right? Okay. Sakura Aviation is here, you guys. This is Mr. Grizzly's channel. Hello. Oh, my word. Your first comment. Very interesting indeed. Brilliant live stream as always. Thank you so much. That's Mr. Grizzly, you guys. Okay. So, yeah, it's 4 hours apart. I mean, now it says 4 hours 22. Earlier it said, oh, that's the other way around. Sorry. This is 3 hours and 7 minutes. 3 to 4 hours, depending on which route you take. Interesting, right? So, let me know what you guys think, especially in the comments below where I can read through all of those. Do you think in any way that this will end up having some sort of connection or not? My initial, when I just looked at it, looked at some articles and things, I'm like, I don't know. But the more I started digging into it, I'm like, oh no, this is getting quite interesting, because if there is more than one person involved in the Delphi case, and if they say there's more than one person involved in the Stevenson case, because they say using the word killers and things like that, and participants, well, that's interesting, right? Okay. So thank you so much for watching this with me, covering, I'm just covering this case thinking this is interesting. If there is a connection, I'm not sure if there will be. We'll wait for those DNA results. I don't know how long that will take or exactly which date they started those. If you enjoy it, please hit the thumbs up. Please share the video. You can use the hashtag Delphi and also hashtag Bill and Peggy Stephenson. I do think the reward is at 100 $1,000 now. So if you do have any information, I'm going to put all the phone numbers and everything in my description box. So if you know anything, please do come forward. Let's hope somebody sees this and they know even just something. Especially a lot of people follow the Delphi case, and maybe in hearing some of this information, it might just ring a bell. Van says, thanks, G. This was very interesting. So thank you so much. I will see you guys. And now I have to go and record the Koberger, the Idaho case new document. Go check that one out. It was a little bit all over the place because we were going through it live as we got the doc. But now I'm going to go and make a comprehensive list for you guys and record a video so that you can just watch exactly what they found in his house and in his Elantra. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. If you did manage to make both streams, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, mods, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay safe.